What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we'll be looking at which running backs I'd be selling high on and buying low on this week. I want to give the exact same reminder as I did last week because it's extremely important to understand. Please remember that trades are best executed when you are filling a need of the other team. Right? So many people get frustrated. They're like, I can't do trades. No one wants to trade with me. And then you look at their trades and they don't make any sense, right? If someone is deep at wide receiver, don't offer them wide receivers for their running backs. I don't care how good the deal is. They don't want to do it. You have to put yourself in the other person's position. Would they actually accept this trade? So for this video specifically, you should be selling to teams with a need at the running back position and buying from teams who have an abundance. Now, that might not be possible. I can't go over every running back in this video. Not every running back is a sell high or a buy low. Some are just neutral. If that's the case, then you can just look at the trade targets page on our website. I update that every single Tuesday. It has more names than I give in this video. I'll also update the rest of season rankings each Monday afternoon, and you can use that to help yourself with trades as well. You want to be trying to trade for players who are higher in the rest of season rankings than what you currently have. And again, all that can be found on our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So we'll go over all these trade targets and sells in a second, but first, have to start things off as usual. Stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was just one tight end ranks inside the top 10 and half PPR scoring, even without scoring a touchdown. The answer is Kyle Pitts. Official Rich One was the first to get that right on YouTube, and at Jackson Ganley was the first to get that right on Twitter. Today's stat. Among the 5 players in the league right now with at least 50% of their team's air yards, only one has less than 110 receiving yards. Who is it? All right, so we had a really good week too. Our sell high list decreased its production by 67% going from week 1 to week 2, and our buy lows increased their production by 70% going from 1 to 2 as well. So let's see if we can keep things going in week 3. We'll start off with sell highs again, and the first name on the list is Damien Harris. Harris has 39 carries through 2 weeks, which is really, really good. That's 6th amongst all players. That's a lot of carries, right? One thing we need to be careful with is carries are nice, but we want targets, we want touchdowns. Now, one big positive with Harris is so far he's very clearly the goal line back when they want to get into a goal line package. But as we saw on Sunday, the Patriots are not just going to take whoever's on the field off the field to bring in Harris. We saw them drive down the field. They happen to have James White. They use James White. I don't remember what yard line they're at. Maybe like the 5 to 7, kind of like that range. They still use James White to run the ball in. So yes, he's a goal line back. He's not the surefire goal line back where he's always going to be used in that area. And again, he's been fantastic with the carries, but targets are much more valuable. And at this point, it does not look like he's going to get the targets. So then you consider, okay, he doesn't have 100% of the goal line work. He's not going to get many targets. So he has these carries. He's on a team that we kind of thought, I don't think the Patriots are playing poorly, but we thought that they would be much more efficient on the ground. They have a really good offensive line, and we thought that that would be their identity. It's just running the ball nonstop. They've honestly been better at the short passing game than they have been running the football. And so as they start to get into more and more games where they're not playing the Jets and the Dolphins, I mean, 2 teams that are okay, but they're not like the elite teams in the NFL. As they start playing more difficult opponents, the game scripts can definitely get away from Harris. Then you consider Ramondre Stevenson. I know he was inactive this week, but come week 8, 9, 10, 11, does Stevenson start to take more work from Harris? Maybe. So I think there are a lot of risk factors with Harris that I don't love, and the upside isn't there because he kind of needs multiple touchdowns to really crush it in a week. So I'd be selling high on Harris. Honestly, I went through all of the running backs. The only other name out there that I see as a sell high this week is Tyson Williams. Again, we're really not just saying, oh, I've got this running back that had a huge performance. I'm trying to sell high on him, right? Especially the running back position. If people are capable of 25, 30 points, we probably want them on the roster. And again, trades are best done saying, I'm not necessarily selling high on this running back. It's you need any running back with a pulse I'll give you one of my options for something else. We're not necessarily always trying to sell high at the running back position. But if we're doing that this week and we're looking at Harris and we're looking at Tyson Williams, now I know a lot of you do not agree with my stance on this one. And I agree with the premise of everyone that says, well, Nick, he's clearly the best running back in that roster. Yeah, I think anyone with eyes can see that he's the best running back on the roster. But for fantasy and for the value he provides in fantasy, it's different than that, right? I don't care if he looks like the best running back on the roster if he's never going to see more than like 15 carries. And that would be okay if he was always scoring a touchdown, if he was always used late in the game, if he could maybe see that spike when they're dominating. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be possible even right now. And right now they're still working Latavius in, working Freeman in. They're going to be activating Bell at some point. Now, as I said in yesterday's video and last week, I kind of do feel like they're going to cut one of Bell, Freeman, or Murray, but it won't matter. They're going to pick two among those guys, and they're going to be active every single week. And when you have a 3-man committee, there's only so much upside, especially if none of them are really catching passes. So he's going to be valuable, right? But he's got more value now than he's going to have down the line. Later in the season, he's going to decrease in value, and so why hang on to him now? He's the running back 13 overall right now, so he's been very productive. Again, he's had primetime games, and he's had games where he's looked really good. And so everyone's watching these games going like, oh, yeah, that's a player I want on my team, not really thinking about what's going to happen as they start activating and using some of these running backs that they just signed off free agency. So I have him in, I believe, 1 of 3 leagues. I am trying to trade him away, and I honestly think you should do the same. That is honestly it for the sell highs. Again, I don't think there's any glaring sell highs. I'm not just going to throw out names that don't make any sense to you. For buy low, I want to mention Saquon again. I don't want to go over him in depth just because we did that last week. It's the same points. I still think Saquon is a really nice buy low. But yeah, I mean, his snaps skyrocketed this last week. The Giants offensive line is trash, but like Saquon's running back 48 right now. He's got like 11 fantasy points, even though we know it's going to come. We know there's going to be a week where he gets like 17 carries, 7 receptions. He's got 150 multiple scores, and then there's a 0% chance you'll ever be able to trade for him for the rest of the season. At least right now, he's performing so poorly that you have an opportunity to try and get him. I still think he's a low-end running back 1 rest of the season. That's what you're going to have to probably give up, but I think it's worth trying to do a 2-for-1 to get up to him. And especially, I mean, they open the season with Broncos and football team, right? I mean, they get a home matchup with the Falcons this week. This could be the final week you can trade for him. We're talking about some new names. Now let's talk about James Robinson. He increased his snaps from 63% to 73% this last week. And they also moved away from a committee. So in week 1, he saw, at least Hyde saw 9 carries and 2 targets. And then we saw Robinson get 5 carries and 6 targets. So it was a really big split. We saw Hyde get way more touches on the ground than we were hoping for. Well, that changed in week 2. Despite the mediocre box score, Robinson increased to 11 carries. He had 3 targets compared to just 2 carries and 0 targets for Carlos Hyde. So he maintained a very strong lead as a receiving back. He's the only running back getting targets right now. But he also dominated the touches on the ground, getting 11 of the 13 running back carries. The team has looked awful in back-to-back weeks. I am not going to discount that, but that's why he's a buy low. Right, if Trevor Lawrence was going out there and just dominating, and Robinson was just coming off, 100 yards and a score, you wouldn't be able to buy low, right? This is a really, really good time to buy Robinson because this offense does have upside. It could definitely improve down the stretch of the season, even in the next couple of weeks. And clear lead backs on teams are not easy to come by when that offense does have a little bit of upside. I'm not saying the Jaguars are going to crush it this season, but they could be decent. And if Robinson's going to get the majority of the touches, then he doesn't have the same upside as last season, but he's got close to it. And so he's got no value right now because he hasn't been doing anything. I think moving forward, he's going to increase in value. And I definitely think he's someone that you should be trying to trade for. Also would be trading for Myles Gaskin. That's probably going to surprise a number of you since I faded him over the summer and he hasn't been great over the first 2 weeks. But he hasn't been great because the Dolphins have played two good defenses, and the game script has been not so good. It was really, really bad last week. Obviously, they lost by 35 points. That's just embarrassing. So he didn't really have a chance in that game, right? But if you watch those games, it's pretty clear that Myles Gaskin's the best running back on the roster. And despite getting 5 carries, Malcolm Brown has basically been phased out of the game plan. He only played 9 snaps. 4 of his 5 carries came on the final drive. So when they were down 35 points and the game was over, Gaskin had 5 targets again in week 2. So he's very involved in the receiving game. He was efficient, 46 yards on 9 touches. My concern with Gaskin was never really the offense overall performing this poorly. It was really that a combination of the line not being great and the committee. But he had 7 of the 10 first half running back touches, and his heavy involvement in the receiving game elevates both his floor and his ceiling. So I've moved him up to the running back 21 rest of season, despite being the running back 37 right now, because he's basically been hitting his floor in the last 2 games, and his floor is still viable. Obviously, he's performing poorly, but he's not doing awful. And so if this is his floor, he's got some nice value. He's got a really nice ceiling, especially they got some good matchups coming up. I mean, they've got 2 games against the Jets. They've got the Jaguars on the schedule, the Texans, the Giants, the Falcons, the Raiders. So they're not playing really, really difficult teams every single week. They've got a lot of easy matchups. And so that's a lot of opportunities for Gaskin to crush it. And once he has a game where he's got 80 rushing yards, 5 receptions, a touchdown or 2, people are going to start realizing he's the best running back on this roster. And so we should probably be getting him in fantasy. Alvin Kamara, also a buy low, gained only 5 yards on 8 carries. And so if you're in the market for a top 5 running back, go after him. When he only has 33 total yards, doesn't score a touchdown, obviously it was a bad week. The Saints were just embarrassed last week. But honestly, the Panthers defense might just be decent. It might just be a good defense. And also they're missing half of their coaching staff. So it wasn't really a good spot for the Saints. Kamara has now played 73% and 84% of the snaps in weeks 1 and 2. And then this last week, it tied his 3rd highest percent of snaps ever. So if we look at previous seasons, he was really, really good. And he was exceptional when Michael Thomas was out. His only problem was ever that they're just not playing him every snap because they would give Latavius a lot of the snaps. But these first 2 weeks, he has dominated the running back snaps, and they've just been weird game scripts, right? They crushed the Packers in week 1, and then they get embarrassed by the Panthers in week 2. It's when they're playing in competitive game scripts, and these are back and forth affairs, he's going to have so many touches, such a high percent of this offense's touches. I don't think people have fully realized that because he's had 2 bad game scripts in back-to-back weeks. So you're probably not going to be able to trade for him either once he finally has an explosion spot. But I would be trying to send an offer for him if you're in the market again for a top 5 running back. The final buy low I have here right now is Michael Carter. Now, don't put too much stock into this, but as I've said last week, I went to the Jets-Patriots game. To me, just watching them play, it was glaringly obvious that Michael Carter was easily the best running back on the Jets roster. You can really just tell he's more explosive, he is more elusive, he can break tackles much, much better. Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman, they're fine, but they're not the future of the Jets. They're not all that talented. Michael Carter has the upside to be the feature back on this team down the stretch. Now it's the Jets. They're not that good. And so take that with a grain of salt. He's not going to be a running back 1 this season. But to close the year, if he's getting, 70% of the snaps and touches, and he's mixing in receptions, and he looks as good as he did on Sunday, he's going to be very, very valuable in fantasy. And I honestly cannot imagine them sticking with the committee all season. Tevin Coleman's not that good. Ty Johnson's not that good. And this team isn't playing for the playoffs. They're playing for the future. And so why would you not give Michael Carter more snaps with Elijah Moore, with Zach Wilson, with maybe Corey Davis if they think he's in the future as well? Play your young guys that you think are going to be playing in the future and just develop their chemistry even more, especially when they're the best players, right? It would make no sense to not be giving Carter more and more touches. And so since he hasn't been doing like fantastic yet, I think he's a really quality running back to go after. If maybe a team drafted him later, they've already got some quality running backs ahead of him. Maybe they're thin at tight end or quarterback or wide receiver, and you have some depth there. Transfer some of that depth into Michael Carter, and I think you're going to be pleased with the outcome. So those are the running backs that I would trade for and away this week. Again, I'll be posting more names on the website. I actually already have posted as of even recording this, so it's already up there. Again, if you want to see a larger list, check that out. I also updated the droppable players list. I updated the rest of the season rankings. You can use those to help you with trades and free agent decisions as well. So plenty of other information to check out on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And remember to follow me on TikTok. I'm posting extra content there that doesn't necessarily get posted to YouTube. So if you want more free information, go check it out over there. Now, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting that like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.